Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll kind of let our attendees join over the next few minutes. I'll introduce myself real quickly. My name is Leslie Walton. I am your NSHSS Member Engagement Manager, and I will introduce our panelist, Josie Pierce, here in just a second. But while we're waiting, go ahead and say hi in the chat. Please let us know, where are you joining from today? We always like to hear where our members are joining us from because it's super exciting, and we love the fact that we have members from all across the country and sometimes all across the globe. So that's very exciting. So let us know where you're from. How are you doing? Pennsylvania, New Jersey, fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. Massachusetts, there we go. I think Josie might have something to say about that.
Yes.
Great. And as we're getting started, we have a brief poll for everyone. Just want to know, have you ever applied for an NSHSS scholarship? Let us know. Leave that open for a few more seconds so everyone can say. Someone's chatting no. We're excited to have you. Thank you for joining us today. Well, we hope that you can get some good information. I know I have always joined these conversations, always find something new or some new advice, and I'm sure that today will be no different. I'm going to give us just about 10 more seconds on that poll, and then I'll introduce Josie so we can get this conversation started. Okay, great. So as we can see from our results, it seems like most of you have not applied for an NSHSS scholarship. So as I said before, this will be a great opportunity to get some advice about how you can do so, and then also some great advice for applying to other scholarships. It is my privilege and pleasure to introduce our panelist, speaker, guest for today, Josie Pierce, who is an NSHSS Fellow. She is the recipient of the 2016 Robert Shepard Leadership Award and is graduated cum laude from Dartmouth College. Josie is continuing her education by pursuing both a joint JD, MD degree, and you're at Harvard right now doing post-bac for pre-med. That sounds like a lot going on. Josie also is very active in the alumni group at Dartmouth and acts as an applicant interviewer for people that are applying to Dartmouth. So I think that's great. We'll be happy to have you share some of that information with our NSHSS community as well, because I know that's always a topic of conversation that comes up. And one of the things that I really loved is that you have over 1,000 scholarship hours that you have worked in pursuing funding for your education. I can't wait to hear more about that. But most recently, I was delighted to get to meet Josie in person when she came to volunteer at Scholars Day DC as part of the Fellows Leadership Program. So that was really amazing. And I know Josie has some insight about networking opportunities that came up for her during Scholars Day. So we'll love to hear that as well. So just some quick housekeeping before Josie gets started. If you have any questions for her, you can drop it in that Q&A section that's at the bottom of your screen. And then I would say you can click the view button that's up here and make sure that you're on speaker view so you can see Josie the whole time. And let us know if you have any questions. We'll be ready for those. And I just look forward to hearing everything that you have to share with us today, Josie.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to virtually meet you. Like Leslie said, my name is Josie, and I was a finalist for the Robert Shepard Leadership Award way back in 2016. And when I was actually getting ready to do this talk for you guys, I was talking to Leslie how I had actually applied to that award in 2015 and I didn't get it. And I was going through my emails, looking at that. I was like, oh, wow, how sad. But then the next year I tried again and I got this award. So I think of anything that I can tell you about scholarships, that's the most important is to be consistent and to keep trying. There are so many college bound students in America, and there are not that many scholarships for the amount of students that are going to college and how much college costs today. So I think being persistent is really key, and then continuing to work on yourself, work on your volunteer hours, work on the things that you're passionate about to consistently make yourself a better applicant, not only for scholarships and for college as well. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how I found this scholarship and why I decided to apply to this one through NSHSS. So in my junior and senior year of high school, I knew I was college bound, and I really wanted to fund as much of my education as possible with scholarships. My school ended up being $75,000 a year without any financial aid or any scholarship money. And so while many students do receive financial aid, I still didn't want to have to pay for a lot of money on top of the financial aid. In school, $75,000 a year, and you get a 50% tuition scholarship, you're still paying over $30,000 a year for school. So I was already a member of NSHSS, and I started looking at the scholarships they're offering, and I applied to a lot of them. I applied to all the ones that I was eligible for because, like I said, college is so expensive. But this one in particular stood out to me because it focuses on community service and volunteer projects in your neighborhood that you're really passionate about and that you spend a lot of time doing. And for me, I volunteered with an organization called Assist Teens. It's a branch of the Assistance League program, which is a national program, and they have Assistance League facilities in many cities across the country. And so mine was Assistance League of Long Beach. And this Assist Teens program is for high schoolers to give back to their communities. And it's a great way to get community service hours for your high school requirements, or to look really great on your college resume when you're applying to colleges. And it also just allows you really good opportunities to give back to your community in ways that you might not have the connections to do when you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. So this program is really great. I would highly recommend it if there's one near you, but if not, there's several other organizations that do stuff like this, like the Lions Club. I know they have like Leo Lions, and there's lots of opportunities for organizations like this. Just a quick Google search away if you're interested in something like that. But so one of what I actually wrote my essay on for this was Operation School Bell, which is a program that the Assistance League of Long Beach does in partnership with the local public schools in Long Beach, California. And we essentially help students who are in need financially get their supplies for school, for going back to school. A lot of families can't afford to buy them new clothes for school and school supplies, such as backpacks, pencils, pencil pouches, some things that people think are very normal for a child to have. A lot of people are unable to afford them. So we would pack all of these backpacks up for them with all their new back to school gear. And then we would actually go and deliver it to the students themselves. And it's just such a great experience being able to help these students, and they're able to fit in at the school. They have brand new clothes, they have brand new school supplies. And it's also just a great opportunity as a high schooler to be able to be part of something so impactful at such a young age. So I highly recommend getting involved with some good volunteer programs throughout high school, because it'll really help you in your college applications, and it'll also help you be prepared for scholarship applications. So after I submitted the scholarship, I think it was like a few months wait until I heard back. But after I did, I was so excited. I got to go to a Scholars Day in New York, and I got one of those like giant checks, which I actually still have in my childhood bedroom. Which is so funny, but it's not very often you get a giant check. So those are very fun to have. And then after all of that, I applied for some more scholarships through NSHSS and through other avenues as well. I think that you can never apply for enough scholarships to fund your education. I'm back in grad school now at Harvard, and I'm still applying for scholarships, and I think I will forever be applying for them. So that's really great. Just advice is to keep applying for them, because school is expensive and there are people that are willing to pay for part of it for you, and you should not pass up that opportunity. So now I'll just talk a little bit about what I did with that scholarship money. So this scholarship directly went to fund my education at Dartmouth. Like I mentioned, it's very expensive. So every scholarship that you win can help fund that education. And at Dartmouth, I majored in government and minored in Spanish. And I love my Dartmouth experience, so it wouldn't have been entirely as possible without the scholarship that I won from NSHSS. And now I currently work at a law firm in Boston as a legal assistant. And that's like a job where a lot of students will work, or not students anymore, graduates will work right between undergraduate and either graduate school if they want to be a lawyer, or maybe it's kind of like a stepping stone position to a more permanent career that someone might want. And yeah, like I mentioned, I'm going back to grad school for a JD MD joint degree. So at Dartmouth, I didn't quite realize that I wanted to go into medicine as well as law. So all of my classes were around government and policy and stuff like that. And I have none of the prereq requirements needed for medical school. So I am starting those courses now at Harvard, and I'm very excited to do them and a little bit nervous to be back in the classroom again. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of these questions that came in. What is the program you got community service hours for? Okay, so that program is called Assistines, ASSISTEENS, and that is through Assistance League. So Assistance League has plenty of clubs all around the country. So if you just Google Assistance League, that will come up and you can see if they have a Assistines program for high schoolers. Do I think the membership fee for the society is worth it? Absolutely. So this NSHSS has offered me so many opportunities, not even the scholarship. So getting a scholarship is great, but not everyone in NSHSS is going to win a scholarship. That's just not possible. And you can apply for them as much as you want. And I do hope that you win, but there are other opportunities as well in NSHSS, such as networking. For example, like Leslie was mentioning, I was at Scholars Day, Washington, DC, and I actually got a job offer just being at that event and talking with some of the vendors there and talking with all of the admissions representatives from the school. And so I don't really think there are many other organizations that give you so many opportunities to just meet people that all have your best interest in mind. There was a school that was represented at Scholars Day just 2 weekends ago that all NSHSS members actually are automatically admitted to for college, just for being an NSHSS member, which is crazy and awesome that that opportunity exists through this organization. And so I believe the membership fee is still under $100, and just having those awesome opportunities to meet people, to network, to get job opportunities, to get acceptance to colleges, and incredible scholarship opportunities to learn, go to seminars, presentations, just for paying that small amount is so worth it. All right, I don't know if there's any other questions.
There's a question in the chat from Indira.
Okay.
Can you do joint majors? And then they ask, is getting into NSHSS hard, and do only certain people get into it? I'm happy to answer that if you don't mind, but I'll let you answer about the joint majors.
Sure. So yes, in college, you can definitely joint major. If I had thought ahead of time that I wanted to do a JD MD joint degree for grad school, I 100% would have been a pre-med student at Dartmouth, and I still could have majored in government. I have several friends in college who had joint majors and a minor. There's so many opportunities to study exactly what you want, all in the span of 4 years.
Yeah, and I'll just answer real quickly for Indira. I think, it's relative, the question about whether or not getting into NSHSS is hard. You're invited based on 8 different criteria, objective criteria it's everything from your grade point average to test scores. If you take an AP classes or IB classes, there's a criteria based on that as well, or you can be nominated by an educator. You still have to meet one of our 8 criteria. However, you could be nominated by an educator. So I would say, you know, we broadened our criteria because we recognize that scholars come in all different shapes and sizes. And maybe someone who does well in class and likes in-person interaction doesn't necessarily do well on standardized testing because they get nervous. Or vice versa, maybe someone does well on standardized tests and they don't have a great in-class experience because of their relationship with, you know, the administration or educators, or that they just work best on their own. So we don't want to, you know, create any barriers. We're trying to remove those barriers so that everyone has equitable access to opportunity. And I think that that's one of the great things about NSHSS. As Josie was saying, you know, it's a lifetime membership. There are many opportunities that can come. You join while you're in high school, but as we have an example right in front of us, those opportunities can still come even after you've graduated and you're moving on in your career. So I hope that answered your question, Indira. If not, you can let me know. Did I see another question come in?
I answered it. I thought it'd be best if I typed it out. So I thought it might be good to talk a little bit about being an admissions interviewer at Dartmouth and kind of what admissions interviewers are looking for when you're applying to these schools and when you get asked to do an interview. So first of all, it depends on the type of school. Some schools will offer admissions interviews because they're really interested in you as an applicant and thinking about admitting you. And other schools like Dartmouth, for example, we try to interview everyone, every single applicant. It doesn't matter whether the admissions committee thinks they'd be a great fit or not. They try to interview everyone that applies. So that gives me, as an admissions interviewer, a really good opportunity to see the whole gamut of people that are applying to a school like Dartmouth and who's getting in, because I also see which students are accepted, denied, or waitlisted when decisions go out. So I would say that the key for an admissions interview is probably to be confident. So I think a lot of students come in, they're very nervous about an interview, which I tell them at the beginning, like, hey, I just graduated like a year ago, so you don't have to be that nervous. We're almost the same age. And I don't know if that really helps. I hope it does. But essentially, some students are so nervous that they're not really able to sell themselves. And an interview, especially for college these days where it's so competitive to get in, is about selling yourself and showing why you are the absolute best candidate they have ever seen, and convincing your interviewer that you need to spot at that school and that you will make the best impact on that school. So how you do that is have, first of all, a great resume. You have to be very involved in your community. You have to have things to talk about. So while a great resume is good on paper, it also gives you a lot of substance to talk about in interviews. It makes you interesting. When the interviewer asks what you do for fun, you actually have a response that's not, going to the mall or something like that. You have experiences to pull from for those types of questions. And I can also say that, like, as an interviewer, it's really important that you're involved in these activities because we want involved students on campus. Like, we want our school to continue being the great place that we remembered it was when we were a student there. And so we want the admissions committee to interview people that, continue to build that collaborative, supportive environment, that continue to create fun clubs like the Magic Club and stuff like that. So that's kind of what they're looking for. And you can't really sell yourself if you're not a confident individual. So I think in this situation, and also relating to the scholarship that I won, giving back to your community is a great place to start as a resume builder and something to talk about in these interviews. I think what's important also is that students are really passionate about what they do, which I think kind of goes along with confidence. If you just have stuff listed on your resume that you're not really passionate about, you're not going to be really confident selling that to someone, that this is who you are and that this is why they should admit you to a school. So I think those two things kind of go hand in hand. And so my favorite thing that I did and that I think allowed me to be successful with getting into Dartmouth is having breadth and depth. So a lot of people will say to not have breadth and to just have depth, which means if you're involved in like 10 activities, they say that you should just like be really good at and really involved in one activity, which I think can work for a lot of people. But when you are looking at these elite universities and the competitiveness of today, you need to be good and involved at more than just one thing. You need to have, 3 different things that you're very involved with and can talk about. Because if you're in an interview and someone says, what are you most passionate about? And you say that one thing, and then they're like, okay, like what else are you passionate about? What else do you spend your time doing? And that's all you do. You're not multidimensional. And that's not, I don't think, what the admissions interviewers are looking for. They're looking at someone that's well-rounded, and has experience in a lot of different activities, and also good experience in those activities.
So just quickly, I'm going to drop the link to our past webinars page, because Morgan Vasquez, who is the president of our Fellows Executive Board, has done a resume building workshop for us. And so I wanted to put that on there so everyone can take a look at it.
All right, so I got another question. It says, what is your advice for college applications? So there's a lot of advice for college applications. They're a very lengthy and important process in your life. So first would be to start early, start way earlier than you think. There's a lot of test prep that needs to go on for either the SAT or the ACT. And if you're like me, you might have to take it more than one time to get the score that you want, and you need to prepare for that, for the timeline of how long you might need to study for the first test. And if you don't get your score, to study again to take it another time. So I think that's really important to consider. I also think that you need to talk to other people that you trust, trusted advisors, parents, friends, teachers, about the essays that you write. So it's not a crime to have someone else read your essay and correct your grammar, or to say, this sounds nothing like you. You should not submit this to a college. I think a lot of times students think that that's plagiarism or something like that. If someone's going to look over their college admissions essay, or that's not okay. And that's definitely okay. I mean, it's not okay if someone else writes it for you, but if you ask your mom or your favorite teacher to look over your essay, it'll go a long way. And they can tell you whether it's your voice, whether the point that you're trying to make is coming across. And they can also fix any grammatical mistakes, because I think that silly mistakes like that can cost you admission in some situations. You never know what type of person is reading on the other side. Were they a former English professor? They might have a huge issue with grammatical mistakes. And so those are just things that you should be cognizant of. I also think that depending on where you are in high school, you can prepare more or less. If there's some things you're really passionate about, like I was talking, the breadth and depth, you can look for more activities. If you're not that involved in things in your high school, and say you're like a sophomore, you can go sign up for other clubs and work to get leadership positions in the clubs. And if there isn't anything interesting at your high school, make your own club, or go look in your community for different opportunities that exist. I think if time is on your side, there's a lot that you can do to be successful in the college application process. I took the SAT and ACT, I think my junior year of high school. And I think I may have taken it for the second time my senior fall. I think that's correct. I haven't thought about that for a long time. Once you're out of that college application time and have graduated from college, you never remember stuff like that anymore. Okay. Oh, so this next question is it okay to submit an AP score of 4 to elite colleges? I think so. I think I got a 4 on some AP exams. And I think in a lot of colleges, actually, a 4 or a 5 will get you some credit. Or I know at my school, we didn't get any like course credits, like we couldn't not take a course because of it, but we were able to skip to the next course. So for example, if you got a certain, I think a 4 or 5 on a Spanish AP test, you no longer had to take beginning Spanish at Dartmouth. Like you could go on to Spanish 9 at which is what like more advanced Spanish is at my college. So yes, I think you can submit those. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, sorry, there's more. How about if you score a 3, will that reduce the chance to get into top choice colleges? You know, I'm not really sure about this. I can't remember what I did or how you were able to submit AP scores. I'm not sure if it's a situation where you just automatically have to give them all of the scores or if you can choose which scores you would like to send them. So I think if you can choose the score and you know their policy on AP scores, so like if they say on mine, a lot of schools will have this, that they accept a 4 or 5 on AP tests and you have a 3 and you can choose which scores you would like to submit, then no, I would not submit that. However, if they say that a 3 through a 5 is acceptable, or if they don't say, or if AP makes you submit all of the scores and you have some 4s and 5s in there, then I definitely think it's worth submitting the 3. Because ultimately how you do on one test, especially if your GPA is good and your SAT or ACT is good, that's not going to make a really big impact. You know, they're not going to say like, oh, a 3 on this social studies AP test. We can't have that. You know, they're not going to be like that if the rest of your application package looks good. The next question is, can I submit 23 on my ACT and still get accepted into Harvard and Penn? I think the ACT is still scored out of 36 points. I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's what it was when I was there. And these institutions are generally accepting people that are scoring in the 30s. So it's out of 36. So a lot of these institutions are accepting 30 and up for those schools. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I will say that that's what they're looking for. And for all of these schools, their medians, 25th and 75th percentiles are online. So you can look up their entering class profile to see what scores and what GPAs of high school students they accepted into their incoming class. And then you can kind of see how your score lines up with those. And when you are applying to these schools, I know they're very elite, but your score should generally be above the 50th percentile of who's getting in to really think that you could be a competitive applicant for those schools. So that stands for Harvard, and that stands for any other school that you could apply to in the US. You always want to be coming in around or above the 50th percentile of the school to be a competitive applicant.
Yeah, so real quick, I also just dropped into the chat for anyone that is an NSHSS member in high school that is looking for a leadership opportunity. We have our ambassador leadership program, which is a great place to start your journey with NSHSS and learn more about the organization. You can then share with your community and share these resources like a conversation with a winner with Josie today. So those applications will open September 1st and they'll be available from your member dashboard for current sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school. So that's an opportunity to kind of get some more of that breadth as Josie was talking about. I know I have another question, or we see another question popped up, but I wanted to ask you real quick, what has stood out to you as an interviewer? Can you kind of give us an example anonymously about something that was impressive to you or something that was so different that it really caught your eye?
Sure. So there's one student that interviewed with me who actually did not get accepted, and I was shocked. That's how competitive it is. You can have interviewers give their utmost, like be like, please accept them as the best student I've ever interviewed, and they still might not get in, which is crazy. But this student was just exceptionally well-spoken and also was very passionate about Dartmouth. I think that's another big thing that I haven't previously mentioned, but a lot of these schools care about yield. They don't want to admit people that are not going to come to their school. And so they want to admit people that are the right fit, who Dartmouth thinks is the right fit for them and who the student thinks Dartmouth is the right fit for them as well. So the student was incredibly passionate about Dartmouth. He wanted to go there. He had a brother at another Ivy League school and said, I don't want to go to that school. I want to go to Dartmouth. And it was kind of like knowing that if he was accepted, he would want to come. That's a huge thing that admissions interviewers want to hear and that admissions offices want to hear. Obviously, they want to hear that their school is your top choice for sure. And then also just being really knowledgeable about their resume. You'd be surprised how many people don't know what's on their own resume. Or when you ask them what their extracurriculars are, they don't know, even though you would think if they're applying to a school like Dartmouth, they would have a long list of extracurriculars and be incredibly involved in their community. So it's important to know what's on your resume and important to have things to talk about. So some of the best advice I've gotten doing lots of interviews is pick your 5. So for me, my 5 would be my education. I did pageants when I was younger and throughout college. So I would talk about that. I would have a fun fact. My fun fact was that I was afraid of Scooby-Doo when I was growing up. It's silly, it's dumb, but if an interviewer ever asks you for something funny about you or something that's not on your resume, you have something to tell them. The other one was my family, and another one is volunteer work that I did. So those are 5 aspects of my life that whenever I walked into an interview, I would be able to have an answer to a question. Any question I could answer with one of the 5 topics that I chose. And that's kind of the secret to always being able to talk about something in an interview. So you can answer the same question in any way. When someone asks, like, what's the biggest lesson you've learned? I could answer that with my education. I could answer that about something I learned in pageants. I could answer that from Scooby-Doo if the interviewers needed a laugh, I could answer that from any of these 5 topics. And the key is to get all 5 of them into the interview so that they learn about you. If you spend the whole interview talking about one thing, they're only seeing one side of you. So you need to pick which 5 sides of me does this interviewer need to see? And so I think this applicant didn't know that he was doing that, I'm sure, but because he was like, 17 years old. But essentially he did that and he showed me all different aspects of him. And when I asked him different questions, he answered with different topics and not just the same topic over and over again. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love that. So it's the 5 sides of you that they need to remember.
Right.
Great
yeah.
advice. Thanks.
Okay, so I will go into these questions. I am a current senior right now, and I got into 2 Ivy League schools. How can I decide what school to go to? So it really depends where you will fit in. So the Ivy Leagues have very different personalities. I think some are known to be very competitive. Some are known to be very collegial. Some are known to be more hand-holding schools where professors, the administration is going to help you along your way. And some are known to just throw you off the deep end and say, good luck during your college. So that's actually what I had an Ivy League interviewer tell me when I was making a decision of which school I wanted to attend. And so I picked a hand-holding school, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's wonderful to have administration and professors that are always there for you. When for me, I was moving 3,000 miles away across the country. I knew absolutely no one there. And I didn't want to be thrown into the deep end for college. I wanted people to help me along the way, to give me a roadmap for how to do it for the next 4 years. And that's exactly what I got. So I think it's important to take that into account and see if you're going to thrive in a more cutthroat and competitive environment, or if you want to be really good friends with your classmates and have them bring you notes when you're sick and you miss class. Those are just things to think about. And it might be a different answer for every person. I have friends that went to those more competitive schools and they loved it. And I just don't think I would have. So it all depends on you. Okay, the next question is, I know that you've already explained about interviewers, but how should we prepare for the interviews? What are some of the frequently asked questions in college interviews? So to prepare, I would honestly just sit down with your parents or some friends or some older siblings and ask them to ask you a bunch of questions about your life. I think the key is to be comfortable answering questions off the cuff, whatever comes your way. The interviewer could ask you to tell them a joke. And if you can't think of anything, that's going to be really awkward. So you should just be prepared for any question that could come your way. And it's not necessarily the content of the question of what they're asking. It's more being prepared to speak about anything on the spot. So that's a good thing that you can prepare with. And some frequently asked questions, a lot of them will be why this school. They really want you to have a good researched answer of why you're applying to the school. You know, if someone's applying to Dartmouth and they just say like, oh, I'm interested in studying blah, blah, blah. You can study that anywhere. You know, that's not specific to Dartmouth. I want to know why you want to study in that department with certain professors that you might have read about or researched on the college website. Are there certain clubs that you're interested in? Pretty much every college has all of their clubs on campus listed on their website, and it's not hard to find. And so just doing a little extra research on what specific aspects of the college you're interested in can go a long way and can make you seem really interested. Even though you might be really interested already, you're actually going to seem that way instead of just seeming like every other college student who just added this school to their list just because, and they don't really have a compelling reason to go there. So that's one of them. And some other questions I think that are common to be asked are like, what are you passionate about? What do you spend your time doing when you're not doing homework, when you're not at school? What are your extracurriculars? How do you volunteer in your community? Those are all good ones that you need good answers to because you know, these colleges are seeing so many students. So you really need to stand out. And I think an interview can be your time to shine because the admissions office, the dean of admissions, the admissions committee, they're not talking with you. Your admissions interview with an alum is your only chance to have someone really talk to you. And if you're really great, go to bat for you and write you an excellent recommendation to the admissions committee to be accepted to the school. So it's a really unique chance to get to share your voice and be at least now virtually face to face with someone instead of them just reading all of your accomplishments on a piece of paper.
So I have a quick question for you, Josie. I'm really impressed and sort of in awe of the 1,000 scholarship hours. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and, you know, about your sort of work ethic when it comes to applying for scholarships or applying for the college applications or anything like that. Like, how do you manage that on top of your additional work?
Yeah, so I had over 1,000 volunteer hours in high school. And so that was honestly my main thing though. So, you know, I talked about breadth and depth, but my breadth was a bunch of different volunteer activities and my depth was doing all of those. So I was volunteering with, like I mentioned, Operation School Bell. I was visiting children in Miller Children's Hospital in Long Beach and giving them crafts and giving them toys. And I was just doing a ton of different volunteer activities like that. I also volunteer with the Lupus Foundation of America. I was diagnosed with lupus when I was 15, and I immediately just jumped into this organization because it directly affected me, and I wanted to help other people that were dealing with this diagnosis and also raise money for an organization looking for a cure for this autoimmune disease. And so I found things that I was passionate about, and when you're passionate about something, it's really easy to spend a lot of time working on it. And so, yes, 1,000 hours seems like a lot of hours to volunteer, but I do think that is what helped me stand apart in the college admissions process, because not a lot of people can say that they volunteered that much. And not a lot of people can say they've been that involved with many different organizations and volunteer programs. And that's the kind of thing, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, that students need today to stand out in the admissions process. It's very tough. They're looking for exceptional people, and it takes a lot of work to be that competitive. I mean, unfortunately, that's just how it is today. And so that's why I want to encourage all of you to start putting in the time and effort now when you're a freshman or a sophomore, because it's really hard to rack up a lot of community service hours or go really deep into certain projects in your life when you're starting too late. And so it's important to start early. But if you are starting later now and you're a junior or a rising senior, there's still some time to dive into everything that you can. So if there's anything that you're interested in, try to get as involved as you can now and try to get those hours up in your certain activities now. You know, it's one thing to say, oh, I'm in the magic club at my high school, but it's another thing to say, I'm a board member on the Magic Club at my high school, and I help us plan trips to, you know, local nursing homes to perform for the elderly. You know, so there's stuff you can always do if you're passionate enough about it and if you are willing to put in the time and energy. Okay. So the next question is it okay to have recommendation letters written only from my teachers and not outside of school? So I don't necessarily know because I do think it might be different for every college that you're applying to. Some might say that you need 2 academic letters of recommendation. So those could be from teachers, or they could say that maybe only one needs to be academic and the other one could come from somewhere else. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think if you think your teachers can speak the best to who you are and your abilities and how you will be a contributing student at the college you attend, then that's great. If you think that someone from outside of your school could speak better to that aspect of your life and what you're going to bring to college, then that can be great too. I think some of the best advice I've gotten on letters of recommendation is to ask the people who know you the best. It's never good to get a letter of recommendation from someone powerful or important that you don't know very well. It's better to get a letter of recommendation from someone that knows you very well, but might not be very powerful. You know, it might be your PE teacher at school, and you might think, well, they're not very powerful or important, which honestly is kind of sad because they might have had a great impact on your life, but they could write the best letter of recommendation for you, but they're also not the mayor of your city, but the mayor might not know you that well. So I think it's just important to pick who will know you the best and who can be your biggest champion. Because I do know that letters of recommendation can make or break your application. If someone has very generic things about you, the admissions office is just going to think, okay, like that doesn't really help us. But if, you know, the admissions office is between you and another candidate with very similar profile of test scores, GPA, similar commitment to extracurriculars, those letters of recommendation could really push you over, especially if the other person only has, you know, mediocre letters of recommendation.
And I will just chime in and say, hearing from educators in the NSHSS community, that as with scholarship and college applications, you want to ask for those letters of recommendation early. Ask early because they will have several people coming to them asking them for letters of recommendation. So just make sure to get that in time long before your deadlines, because those letters of recommendation won't change throughout the year, you know, so you can use them for many different applications.
Yep, that's very true.
If you guys have any more questions, go ahead and drop them now. Oh, they keep coming.
When should college applications be started? So, great question. I haven't done this in a long time, but I'm pretty sure a year before you even start to apply. So, college applications go live in the fall and go all the way throughout, I think, late winter. And that's a very long time to submit them. But I think there's always an advantage to submitting them early. So it's just out of your mind, you've done what you can do, and you submit them. And to get that process started, you're going to start with studying for your standardized tests that you choose. The year before your junior year, you're going to start studying. You're going to study for, I don't know how many months you need, 2 to 4 months, and then you're going to take the test. And then if you don't get the score you want, you're going to study for a couple more months and take it again. And that gives you a lot of time for that process. So I would say year before. And then the summer before you're going to apply, that's when you're going to start to ask for letters of recommendation. That's when you're going to start to narrow down your school list of the colleges that you're going to apply to. You might go visit some of them to see if you would have a good fit on their campus. And then you're going to work on all of your essays for these colleges over the summer. And then Hopefully, like I said, you're going to ask some trusted advisors, your parents, teachers, older siblings for their feedback on your essays. And then you're going to work on your resume and get that all settled in the summer before you start school, which I think is the best way to do it because you're not going to be worrying about classes or grades or tests at the same time. And then you'll have a few more months to finalize everything before you need to submit them. So I think that's the best schedule for it. If you start later, I mean, it's obviously still possible. It's just going to be a little bit more crunched on time, a little bit more stressful. So I think that's the least stressful and most like well thought out way to do it. What are some tips for applying to schools? So I feel like I've mentioned a lot of tips already, but one thing that I can think of is that you should really think about the schools you are applying to and really narrow down that list to your top, 15, 20 schools. And that shouldn't just be based on prestige. That should be based on where you think you're going to be a good fit. Do you want to stay close to home? Do you want to try something new like I did and move 3,000 miles across the country? Because that's an option as well. And that can really affect your school list. I didn't really want to stay in California, so I only applied to 2 schools in California, just in case I got cold feet or something, I don't know. But all the rest of the schools I applied to were on the East Coast because that's where I thought I wanted to end up. So that can impact your list as well. What kind of extracurriculars are you looking for? Do you play a sport? Do you want to play in college? Are you going to look somewhere that is recruiting athletes, or do you want to play an intramural sport? And you want to make sure they have intramural team for whatever sport you currently play in college. Those are all important things to think of. In addition, your major is important. I was a government major and Dartmouth has a government department, but if there was some school that didn't have a government department, that's what I wanted to major in, I wouldn't have that on my school list. So those are some very important things to think of when you're thinking of your list and where you want to apply to. All right, the next question is, I have no idea what to write my college essay on. Any advice? So I would get out a list, like a pen and paper, or use your notes app on your phone and just write ideas as they come to your head. And this can be over a few days, it could be over a week or a month, or if you really want to write it now, you could just do it in 5 minutes and get all your ideas out on the paper. And then you should just think about each idea. And once they're all on paper, and think, what do I have the most to say about? And what story that I tell is going to reflect the best on me, but also tell them who I am. So I can't tell you what to write your college essay about, but I think that's a really good process. I'm writing my grad school applications now for next year, and I'm going through the same process myself. And it's taken me a few tries to get a topic that sounds good and reflects who I am. And so sometimes it's some trial and error to get to that point, but everyone has very unique stories. And I think everyone has a lot to say about themselves that really reflects who they are and what kind of person they are. And it just might take some time and some brain dumping to get that all on paper and to pick what's best for you, what's best to tell your story. The next question is, should you apply to schools abroad? And this is a very, personal question for whoever you are. No one can tell you whether or not that's the best option for you. If you're looking for something in a different country and you're not interested in the American college system, then you can apply to those schools. If you're someone that thinks you're more of like a homebody, you want to stay close to your parents, to where you grew up, then maybe applying abroad isn't the best for you. But who's to say, because I don't know who you are or what your life is like. But there are several abroad schools that you can apply to, some of which are actually NSHSS partners. I know I talked to some of them at our event in Scholars Day in DC. So I am sure they are listed on the NSHSS website as our educational partners. And so if you are interested in schools abroad, I think that's a wonderful place to start. And they're already knowledgeable of NSHSS students, so it's really great for you too. And I'm sure they would be excited to see that they have some interest in their programs and be happy to talk with you about that.
Yeah, and I'll jump in real quickly just to say, I dropped the link for an upcoming event in September, which is our university partner panel, which does include Abraham Nshs, who is the program coordinator for UC Berkeley's Summer Sessions and Study Abroad program. So that would be a great opportunity for you to attend that webinar and ask him some questions about studying abroad and potentially, taking your entire college career to another country.
Okay, the next question is, how do you get close to your teachers? So in high school, I think it's pretty easy. Actually, I know it might seem scary as a high school student, but your teachers are just people too. And believe it or not, they weren't in high school that long ago either. So I always had teachers that I would eat lunch in their room and finish some homework or study or just hang out with my friends who also really liked that teacher. But I think it's no big deal to ask a high school teacher if you want to get lunch together and just come to their room with the lunch that you brought from home or got from the cafeteria and just sit with them for the 30 minutes or so that you have and talk with them either about their class or stuff unrelated to class at all, just about their life and your life. And that's how you can start to make these personal connections that can really make the difference in letters of recommendation. Because when a teacher knows you better, they're obviously able to write about you a lot better as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. So we only have about 10 minutes left in this session. In addition to the university partner panel, we will have Scholars Day Atlanta coming up, which is another great place to not only meet your other NSHSS members and fellows like Josie, but as she mentioned before, we always have a college and career fair where you can meet some of these partners and talk to them personally about the experience that you would like to have with school, or if you're interested in studying abroad. We have people that come to talk about internship opportunities, and Josie said, one of our university partners so appreciates and enjoys their partnership with NSHSS that our members are automatically admitted to the program. So I think all that information is on our partners page. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. I think it'll be a really fun time. It's going to be 2 days in November. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving. It'll be a Friday and Saturday. So we're super excited to host everyone. Atlanta is the headquarters of NSHSS. We're based out of Atlanta, so we're proud to have everybody in our hometown. Josie, do you have any closing thoughts for everyone? Any other advice that you would like to share with us?
I think I covered a lot of different topics, but I am happy to serve as a resource for any of you guys here live or watching this later. I know that college applications are a very stressful time and experience for everyone, and that you feel like a lot of weight is riding on your shoulders about where you're going to end up and everything. So I totally get that. And I'm just happy to be here for any of you. If you ever want to reach out, I'm here to talk with you about these big decisions or give you some more personalized advice if you have more specific questions tailored to you. And so I'm sure that my contact info can be passed along if anyone.
If you want to drop either your LinkedIn or your email address into the chat for everyone, that would be great. Just make sure it's shared with everyone. And then I did get a question about the recording of the session. We have our entire Conversations with a Winner series is on the NSHSS YouTube channel. So you can see the events that started in February, and we've had one a month this year. It's been really lovely to get to know everyone. So if you have any questions about what's coming up, you can always visit our upcoming webinars page. We have a different speaker each month. The next Conversations with a Winner in September, why do I not know the date off the top of my head, is Thursday, September 16th. So that's a very exciting time. So we'll have our Conversations with a Winner, and then we will have the university partner panel. So that would be a great day to get all of that information in to help you prepare for applications that will be coming up in the fall. You guys can always email me if you have any questions or trouble getting in touch with anyone. You can just email leslie.walton@nshss.org. And you're probably getting my emails too.
And I'm working on getting my LinkedIn link.
Perfect.
It's not as easy as I thought.
Well, I truly appreciate you being here with us, Josie. And I think it's such a lovely connection to have with you, and then to get to meet you at Scholars Day DC in person and to have you come here and share all of this information. I think you're a great example of how when you find the right education, it's a little bit of a process to go from what you thought you were going to do, and now you're going into medicine, which you never thought you were interested in. But I can absolutely relate to that because I started out in theater and then went to nonprofit and community development. So I hope you guys have had a fun time with us today. And again, as I said, we look forward to seeing you at the next event at our university panel in September. Josie, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
And we will see you next month. Bye-bye.